The next item, 7B, is consideration of math changes at the Toma High School to include additional time and instructional software for personalized learning. And Principal Hay is here to address that.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome.
Thank you. I think you have a plan in front of you, or a proposal in front of you. What we're looking at, the basics are, we know that based on the latest school report card that came out, that our biggest area for improvement is math. At the high school, we have 31.1% of our students considered either proficient or advanced. That means that 68.9% are not considered proficient or advanced in math on the new heightened benchmark WKCE, the NAEPized WKCE. So it's the area that we are the furthest behind in compared to the state average as well. The state average is 48.1% proficient and advanced. So it's the area where we have the biggest potential to make some big gains. What we've tried to do is put together a proposal that combines the best of what we have been able to learn thus far about what are called breakthrough models or breakthrough schools. These are schools that have significant populations of free and reduced lunch students or significant poverty level students. They're schools that have oftentimes large populations of minority students, and they're schools that face significant achievement gaps, similar to the achievement gap we have in math. But they are able to find ways to cut through all of those odds sort of stacked against them and produce levels of achievement that are higher and higher and higher. Accelerate growth, I guess, is a different way to put it. You have a lot of information there at the top. I would just ask you to clue into bullet point number 2 under information from the Next Generation Learning Challenges project. This is wave 3, what they're calling breakthrough schools. And bullet 2 says combining technology-enabled, interactive, and face-to-face instruction makes personalized, mastery-based learning more effective and affordable than relying on either method alone. And I think that sentence kind of embodies what we're trying to put together in this proposal. So the proposal would be that all of our incoming 9th graders next year, in addition to receiving their traditional Algebra 1 instruction, or some of those students geometry instruction, would also be enrolled in a class that we're calling individualized math. Individualized math would be operated using a very sophisticated computer program or software program that's web-based, that uses math algorithms to assess where a student is at and then provide instruction to them wherever they're at. So it's separate from but complementary to the core curriculum. What it means for our kids who still struggle with some basic math skills is they're going to have individualized instruction in whatever those basic math skills are, even if it's as simple as addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. What it means for our highest advanced students is they're going to have individualized math instruction to meet them where they're at and help them move forward, even if that's pre-calculus. So it allows us to get to a deeper level of meeting student needs. The second piece that is just as important is it adds additional contact time between that student's Algebra 1 teacher and them. So in this individualized learning lab environment, the student is going to have access to their teacher and the teacher have access to the student. So for example, if Mr. Von Hayden noticed that this group over here, I'll pick on Brian and Gary, were not quite grasping one of the concepts in Algebra 1, he can pull them aside. He's got the time, the FaceTime with them, and say, you know what, we're going to redo this. We're going to reteach this over here in the corner. We're going to get together and do this. In the same respect, Mr. Thompson can take the advanced learners over here, Pam and Kathy, and pull them aside and give them a special project to help move them forward. So it provides additional sheer instructional time in the area of math, but the software piece also allows us to really get at individualized learning and understanding in a way that we don't have the capacity to do as humans alone. Said that, student considerations are listed at the bottom of the first page. The students enrolled in individual math, and we believe that all students should be enrolled in individual math, would earn 1 elective credit for that. that elective credit would count towards part of the electives that they're required to earn for graduation requirements. And you can stop me at any point if you have some questions or you need to tease things out a little bit more. Some of you have a little more background than others in talking through this over the last couple of weeks. On the next page is staffing considerations, and the estimate we're using for next year's freshman class is 250 students, and that's what these considerations are based off of. It would be using 3 full-time math teachers to teach Algebra 1, where, as you can see their example schedule, they would have 5 sections of Algebra 1 and then 2 sections of individualized math. So the individualized math sections are going to be a large group, but with the teacher there plus the additional staff vis-a-vis an instructional aide, we will have the additional instructional time that we're looking for. Cindy asked me to put together the ideal proposal for you. That's what you have in front of you. There are some things in here that may or may not be possible as you work with Cindy and Greg. But what ideally would happen is I would have the full-time special education teacher position that we eliminated going into this year. I would say if I could have that person back, that person does nothing but work with kids in algebra and in math all day long. And so it's to throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at the issue and say we're all in on this. The second piece that's a little bit more critical to providing the leverage that we need so that Mr. Von Hayden, Mr. Thompson, the other algebra teachers can spend the individualized math time working with their students and not working on the managerial aspects, is to have a full-time aide that works in that room, that manages the attendance, that manages student progress in the software, that helps them with technical issues, does all of what I'm calling the clerical items, so that our most valuable resource in that room, the teacher, can be spending their critical 48 minutes worth of time working one-on-one and in small groups with students. The bottom of page 2, you get to our learning lab considerations. The current space that's under consideration is the old weight room, and it would be to convert 2/3 of that into an oversized learning lab environment with integrated technology and an adaptable learning space. Again, a space that can be used for students when they're doing their one-on-one, but can easily have tables pulled together to say, okay, this small group, we need to redo this particular lesson. So it needs to be a flexible learning environment. We would look to take our current math lab, which is right now right next to the main office, and for those of you who haven't clued into that much yet, that's this year, was new this year, we took all of our math teachers, and instead of assigning them a study hall to run, they're assigned to the math lab. So there's the math teacher available every hour of the day, every day except Tuesdays and Thursdays, 1st and 9th hour. The freshman academy math teachers are with their freshman academy. But almost every day, every hour, we have a math teacher available, and if you ever come in, I invite you to stop in room 102. There's not an hour that goes by that there aren't students from study hall in there receiving help from the range of math subjects, from algebra all the way up through AP Calculus and AP Stats. So we would combine that into the same location. Having staff working together out of one location provides for collaboration. It provides time so that if there is downtime for the math lab teacher, guess what? They've now got a captive audience of 40 to 50 students that also need help with math, and vice versa. The location of the old weight room is convenient in that it's across the hallway from the study hall. Easy to access for students seeking help. And you have a link there to the software that's currently being considered, and Paul Potter has had his team researching various options for the last month or so, and that's the option that seems the most promising at this point in time. And then the other requirement, or again request, best case scenario would be to have 50 network devices that can be dedicated to this space, knowing that there would be between 40 and 50 students scheduled in there every hour except for 1 hour of the day. It's a lot of information.
And again, at the last Board Academy, when we had discussion about the staff members who attended the virtual school symposium, they came back again with ideas on how do we improve what we're currently doing. And again, this idea of blended instruction, computerized instruction with face-to-face time with the teacher, all the research that's out there right now is saying that is the preferred method, the method that will get the biggest bang for the time and energy that you're putting in with the students. It's different, it's a change, but again, what we have been doing isn't working. And it's not because the teachers haven't been working hard and trying their best to help every student. We've got to start looking at some different models, some different approaches to instruction so that our kids are being proficient and advanced and will have success when they move on from Toma High School. There are plenty of projects that have been talked about at Toma High School. I mean, we're talking about the potential of a Project Lead the Way lab, talking about the addition of some other courses in Project Lead the Way, talking about the English pilot where students are focused, using some type of a mobile device. But from discussions that we've had, we feel like this needs to be the priority. When we got those school report cards, and this was the area where we definitely have a weakness in, then let's focus our energies, our time, our effort, again, rallying all the resources to see if we can't make a difference in this area, and as quickly as possible, in order to better serve our students.
When will we have some costs on like the software and computers and renovation to lab space?
End of January. I'm envisioning just, we talked about this real briefly, but I can't imagine it's going to be much more than $50,000 to $60,000 to update the existing weight room. It's just putting up one wall and then ceiling tiles and flooring. So I think we have, a pretty good idea what that is. And I think computers, I don't know that we factored in 50.
Yeah, Paul had that. Yeah.
But you're talking under 100,000 to do a project like this. I'm thinking up top of the head 75 to 100 tops. But we'll go back and get prices. Of course, I've been wrong before on my estimates, but that's top of my head.
And the change will hopefully take place at the start of the next school year. Is that what you're looking at?
This coming school year, yes.
Yes.
Yep. 13-14.
13-14.
Yep. And there's been, there's a lot of discussion from the school improvement work that's going on at all of the schools in the district, and the question has been raised many times by folks within and without of our organization. Isn't there a systemic problem that needs to start earlier? And the answer is yes, but the answer is also, isn't there a systemic problem when students reach 9th grade? And the answer is also yes. And so we need to embrace the students that walk through our doors and do everything in our power to prepare them for when they leave us. Colleges point the finger at high schools oftentimes point the finger at middle schools point it at elementary schools, and elementary schools point it at somebody else. But this is a moment where we as a staff and as a community stop sort of pointing that finger and start digging in and saying, you know what, we're gonna try this. Based on the research that's out there, this is more effective than just doing more of the same. For example, just simply increasing the time and doing what we're doing with math, and it's more effective than just doing all online. It's to combine those two, to have those two separate but very much complementary processes going on.
And I think one of the, when you look at the potential impact, every freshman pretty much takes algebra. I know we have a group of gifted students that may be taking geometry, but that can play out, a similar scenario can play out for them. But, we can have an impact on every child that's going through the high school in this area. And algebra and geometry, Algebra 2 are the classes that students are going to have to demonstrate competency in the Common Core. They need that rigor. And I know that many of our kids have left, gone to college, and struggled with college algebra. Even though they've taken algebra, geometry, and algebra 2. So we've got some work to do to help them be successful upon leaving our school.
And what we're doing at the elementary level with the math expressions, and is there more time incorporated for math at the other levels too, so that as they build on that they get to the high school, and that will just even push them farther? I mean, you're right, you don't want to just jump right to the high school, but I'm hoping that we have things in place starting in the elementary school that's moving us forward, and this is just another piece to the puzzle to make sure that it continues on when they get to the high school.
Math expressions, as you mentioned, is the new curriculum that's been implemented that is designed to get students able to think about math. It's more than just naked numbers. They can explain the reasoning behind and read those story problems and be able to explain how they're coming up with the answers that they come up with. So that's critical. And we have had discussion on increasing math instructional time at the elementary level as well. But right now, we're focused on reading. And we want to get that system in place, the reading block, our daily 5 program working effectively. Then we'll be looking more at what we can do with math.
But having that math curriculum in place, having a guaranteed and viable curriculum at all of your buildings across the district, it will make a difference. The problem is anything that we do now in the first grade is going to take years before it reaches the high school.
Right.
And so we, again, still have a responsibility to the students that are there now.
And I agree with that. I was just trying to figure out, making sure that the other portions of the puzzle are continuing to be looked at too.
Yeah, that's what I would have hoped too, that the math expressions is going to lead to a better incoming freshman.
And there's good work being talked about and planned at the middle school that I think down the road you'll hear about that too, and it will all add up. And I think 3, 4 years, 5 years from now, we will be coming back and I will be reporting to you some significant progress and
But I totally agree. We
different
can't
performance.
forget the students that are there right now. I mean, they are only freshmen once, and they're going to, they have to have that.
Yeah. And the new standard, as Cindy said, is Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. We've got to get every kid through those 3 levels of math.
This is a great plan. I had some concerns, and we talked about it at the committee level and things. And I think this is great, and we should go ahead with it. But I know people that are listening, some people, not everybody. Again, there's no issue that everybody's going to feel the same way on, is going to be listening and hearing about all these changes. And there's more coming down the pike. And they're going to say, and I've had people say this to me, if it was good enough for me, it should be good enough for my kids. And I think we need to address why the changes are so important. I think we need to say to the public, say to the people who are watching, why we are doing this, why overall, not just this math, but overall why these changes are so important. Because there are people who don't know why these changes need to happen.
I can address it a little, and you can fix. So this is to everybody out in TV land.
They're out there.
I think the short answer is China's eating our lunch. And this is a national movement to adopt the Common Core state standards. There's a national movement around STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, that recognizes that as a nation, we are not performing where our peers are in these fields, the high-tech fields that are the fields of today and the fields of tomorrow. And so it's a focus area for the nation, where the nation is saying we've got to up the ante and the expectation of all students to be competent in math and in science and those technical fields that weren't as important even 10 years ago, 20 years ago, because the world has changed dramatically. Think of the technology as I look around all of you with your laptops and everything around here. This wasn't the world that we lived in 10 years ago. So the schools that I went to, the schools that you went to, prepared us for the world that was. And the challenge now for schools is to prepare students not even for the world that is, but for the world that will be. And if I think about how fast that's changed, that I have a smartphone in my pocket that can, in the blink of an eye, go up to satellite towers and tell me where I'm at, and Siri can tell me how to get to your house, and this world is radically different than any world we've seen before. And so the level of competence that we have to have in the technical areas is that much higher. And that's ultimately where this comes from.
20 years ago, you could graduate from high school and get a good paying job with a high school diploma. There were factories, there were places of business that employed people. That doesn't exist to the degree that it used to. So we have to help students be prepared for the jobs that are out there, and as Mr. Hayes said, highly skilled jobs that require the ability not only to use technical skills, but to be innovative and creative. Schooling has to reflect the changes in terms of the type of child that we want to create who can be successful in that new world. The jobs are different. The skills that kids need are different.
And the technology it's pervasive across every industry and sector. My uncle was a farmer for decades, and he retired early because he didn't know how to keep up with the technology. He chose not to have to learn how everything was changing, the GPS systems that would take implements through your fields. It's just very, very different now than it was, and that's the reality we have to face.
Thank you. I think you both provided some very good answers for our public.
And just to be clear again, I should know, since I got it the first round when you explained it at the other meeting, and then again tonight. In the freshman year, all students would have the two periods, the algebra and then the individual math. It would be required of all incoming freshmen.
Correct.
And it would be required, but then since that's sort of taking, in some sense, a period away from them, we are giving them an elective credit for that individual math to help them cover their elective requirements.
Correct. Yep. And again, that was part of what went into informing that decision, was knowing that we have students that will still want to be able to take band or choir and foreign language in it, and we want to make sure that they can fit that in without having to give something up. And we believe that through this we know that there are a smaller select group of students, somewhere between 20 and 30, that will want to do band, choir, and foreign language, and are going to run into a space problem. We're working on some solutions. I don't have those ready to present to you tonight, but they include being able to offer a health class online. They include being able to defer a Phi-Ed credit from freshman year to take later, so that students who need to stay engaged in all of those activities that are so meaningful to them will have a plan in place for them to be able to do that.
And for freshmen coming in going to geometry, they'll just have the normal geometry class. Is that correct?
We are planning right now that all freshmen would have the second hour of math. So whether they're registered for Algebra 1 or for geometry, they would have the individualized math component.
Okay, so they would be able to do the geometry work.
Yeah.
And then what about 8th graders then that are taking Algebra 1 as an 8th grader so that they can take geometry then as a freshman? Will they have access to this software to help them But the individualized learning?
That's what you were just referring to.
No.
No, at the
Eighth graders who take
Eighth
this at
graders.
the middle
Oh,
school.
who take algebra
Yeah.
at
The middle school.
The software is completely web-based, so it's possible to do it from anywhere. And I know Mr. Buss, just at our secondary principals meeting this afternoon, was talking about looking at options for how they would implement that at the middle school with those select groups. I don't have a plan for that, and I don't know that he has that fleshed out yet, but it is under consideration.
Okay, good.
It sure seems like the individual math, even for that really gifted student in math, is going to be a real positive
Yep.
thing to them.
Yes.
I think we've been searching for something for them also, and I think that would fit them.
It's, as we've, talked about, and teachers will tell you, the challenge of one teacher and 30 students and trying to bring up the base and increase the top while meeting the needs of everyone in the middle is very difficult. And oftentimes, it becomes, where they really focus on the majority of the class and those who are in the greatest need. And so it's many times your gifted learners who aren't pushed, aren't challenged as far as they need to be, because there's just simply isn't time in the day.
Mrs. Zardi, do you know how many Algebra 1 students are at the 8th grade level? Is it like 1 or 2 sections or 1 or 2 classes?
At the most, it would be 2 sections, and
Okay.
I think we have 2 sections, but I'm
Okay.
not 100% sure on that.
Okay.
So probably.
I'm told there's one on each side, yes.
Yeah, on each team.
Okay, good.
So probably around 40 students. And again, the students who are in algebra as 8th graders are students who have excelled mathematically. So it may be that even coming to the high school as a freshman, taking geometry, providing them at that point with the additional math, the individualized math that will take them wherever they are and move them forward.
Yeah.
So even if it's just when they come to the high school, that's still
And important to note, though,
we currently have.
there are some students who are in our accelerated math who, for years under the old WKC rules, were considered advanced, who are now considered either proficient but barely so, or
Right.
sometimes considered basic. And it really was a very high ratcheting up of the standards. The standard before was intended so that we would never fail the standard. Well, for Wisconsin, it did a pretty good job at that. It kept us out of federal spotlight. The standard now is to give us a realistic benchmark of where we need to be. So, we have good work to do, but I think we have some good ways of getting at it.
So we will attempt to bring back at the January meeting some more numbers and figures for you. I know from speaking with Mr. Hay, he's committed enough that, he's given us the ideal, but we'll figure out if we can't get the ideal, how we make it work by tweaking parts of this, changing parts so that we can get it to happen. I mean, there's a sense of a real commitment that this is the priority for our high school and our students.
Sounds great. Thanks for putting all the
Yep.
thought into it.
You bet. Thank you.
With that, we